This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library
enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price you can get Truefire All Access for. This is a product that I have not seen yet, but I'm being chased to build a preset for it. So I'm unboxing this now. I'm going to create a preset, but I have no idea when this video is going to go out. Amp Academy Stomp. So this is a NUX pedal. Now I did a video with the Amp Academy, and then I sent the Amp Academy to a buddy, Chris, and this is sort of, well, what would you call it? The daddy version of it.
So NUX sent me this. It's a £235 piece of gear. These switches feel very quality. The hardware actually itself, like this is nice metal knobs. One little kind of downside for me is that the manual doesn't really give as much information as I'd like. Now in this video it's going to be quite a long one, so you might want to use the timestamps and get to the bits and pieces. Now although they've sent me this, and I've done some paid work for NUX in the past, I'm not going to try and sort of like gloss over anything or, you know, tell you anything is the best sounds in the world. Just sort of show you exactly what the product's like. Also included in here, so it's quite a reasonable price, has to be said, £235, can run off 600 milliamps, 9 volts, and you have this additional foot switch here where you could do some additional bits and pieces. For me personally, I don't think that I would gig this, but then I have some very, very expensive modelers that I have access to. But reasonably in the past I gigged the HX Stomp with 3 snapshots. This has kind of some of those same capabilities. So yeah, the sounds in there are pretty good. There's a good choice of amps. A relatively flexible signal chain is somewhat fixed, so you're not going to be able to do some of like the really crazy ambient stuff that you could do on the HX Stomp, or dual amping, so there are some key things missing. But what this has that none of the other big modelers really have at the moment is the ability to load NAMs, so I'll show you how you do that. Again, use timestamps, and this is kind of just like an honest sort of first attempt at using it. Some tones that I dialed in and what the unit sounds like. So yeah, let's get into it. So in order to give this a fair shake, there's been an upgrade. So here we see K-Firo. Actually a bunch of people that have added their own preset. Leo Gibson, this is the one that jumped out to me.
I don't know if it's got scenes. Anyway, right, so what we should talk about is this image part, because you can actually load now your own NAM captures. Dirty Shirley one. So maybe I should do a different video in terms of like my real feelings on NAM in general, because I still think there's like quite a lot of work to be done. But you import a NAM file like this, so you could add a few in. Okay, so we're done with that. Right, so now if I go into the amp block here, options, so there's their own kind of captures like this. Which actually feel to me, I think maybe that feels better to play than the actual Vox. Then they've also got the Friedman. Okay, and then last of all, this is the one that I've loaded in. What I might also do would be to load in, if I can, my own IR. How do I load one? This one would be right. Listen, right, I'm going to turn this one to right, also to JC Cab. But yeah, so you can load your own NAM things or use their multi-NAM, which I think sound pretty good. So yeah, I think that about covers as much as I can do in one video. In this video, I'm going to show you most of the basics of like what it's like to use. It's unfortunately not a great manual, but you get some idea, hopefully, from this video about what's included. A good selection of amps, cover a lot of what you need. A good selection of effects, so whether that's drives, wahs. It's not the most amount of DSP ever, so you're going to kind of, yeah, be dealing with running one amp, a delay reverb, so sort of like an HX Stomp really in terms of capability, but no dual amping. I think, yeah, there's some really cool stuff in here. I would say my genuine opinion is that whilst you can close the gaps in terms of features, like none of the big units are able to load NAM yet, so an area that the Chinese companies or Eastern companies have been ahead of the game. I do still think usability and actual like proper gigging features still is an area where this stuff sort of could use some improvement, in my opinion.
If we jump onto the website, because I think the manual is not actually super useful, but we can kind of get a bit of an overview here. 3 foot switch modelers are on an up and coming trend in the market. NUX heard your request, and that's the main reason for creating AA Stomp. an end-to-end tone shaping amp sim, independent LR left and right Cyber IR engine, physical modeling algorithm with separated preamp and power amp combination. Twice as complex as what was found in the previous versions. You choose different power tubes to drive the creative sound. Okay, some idea about what's included here. And power amps. Then Cyber IR technology, the high cut only goes down to 5,000 Hertz, but this is kind of similar to the ToneMaster Pro in terms of approach actually. Then got parallel serial delay and reverb blocks, so you can put them in a couple of different orders, kind of useful. Send jack sends the signal before the IR signal block to a real amplifier, power amp in, and sends the outputs with IR signals to the PA system or FRFR. Some kind of options for how you might run that sort of thing. That's pretty useful actually. Scene stomps mode. So for me, I've been mostly thinking that if I was going to be using this live, I'd be running in scene mode. A snapshot of a specific effect signal change, including the switching of effects modules and setting changes of parameters. MIDI in and out, extra kind of foot switch included. This quick block design thing essentially wasn't in the manual, but it means that these four here are essentially connecting to these blocks. Is how that works. So if you want to quickly get into the amp and make a change or delay or whatever, you can just change that to be any four blocks within your signal chain. Kind of useful, quite a cool idea for how to use these. Stereo phrase loop with pre-post position. There's a Bluetooth module as well, and accompanying an iOS Android app. So that's pretty cool, as you can see here. USB audio interface, as almost everything does now. Now this is a part that wasn't there when I first checked it out. You can load a NAM, and they've also got their own, what they call single layer image capture into the image loader. And as a bonus, we're releasing 3 complete multi-layer deep image amp models for you. Deluxe reverb, based on the 65 panel American clean amp. Classic A30, based on the Vox obviously, and then the Friedman David modified British Crunch amp. So that pretty much covers it. The manual is not super useful, but that's a bit of an overview for you. As we know in the world of guitar gear, there are about 3 names you can use: Go, Stomp. You know, that's about all you can do. So this is obviously the Stomp, the Amp Academy Stomp. Please wait for a while, the device is entering factory default. I guess let's just run through some presets. That's pretty good. This one, JC120. Press the edit. Pretty cool little screen here. Blues driver. Let's jump into this mode. Okay, if I go back, right, so go to deluxe reverb again. Sounds really good. Right, okay. Tweedy. JTM. Right, so there's like clearly a lot of choices to make here. Blues breaker. What I like about it is really not even that focused on heavier stuff. I guess I'm just going to save over this one. So amps that we could use. Lots of choices. I'm going to start with deluxe reverb. You can select both inputs here, as well as a bright switch. So I'll go into input 1, bright switch off, gain. Oh, I've got the wrong amp. Deluxe reverb is what I want. Input 1, bass, treble about halfway. You can have different IR for left and right, that's cool. I'm not going to do that though. Right, so let's start saving this. Save preset. Okay, well this is JC. Right, will the troop screen work? Yes, let's go with the NUX Steel Singer. Then got scene 1, scene 2 and scene 3. So scene 2, what I'm going to do scene 1. Now, at this point I decided that it was appropriate to jump into the software. So this is what the software looks like, and I have to say it's easier to edit than on the device itself. So definitely jump in here. You can see you can change tube section within the app itself, so 6L6 power amp, 6V6, etc. Then we can go on to different scenes, and on different scenes you can also have different amps, which is kind of interesting and a little bit unique to NUX in the way that they do things. So a preset is not just about, you know, parameters with certain amps. You can actually have different models. If we look in here, we've got plenty of choices for IRs. It is IR based stuff, but you can also see there's this cyber IR thing. You can copy scenes. You just copy that to scene 2 and 3. That's probably the best way to start making your presets. I think this is me trying to figure out how to save a preset. Then for scene because obviously a deluxe reverb has a fair amount of headroom. Taking the mix down a delay, so we kind of got two tones here at this point. That's basically how I've ended up putting this preset together. I'm saving it here again. Here, creating a duplicate of that preset so that I can just swap out essentially the amp block and try something different here. Going through our amp selection, you can see there's a good selection of amps in here. A pretty good selection in general. You know, you've got all of your basics covered as well as some nice extras. So I thought here, let's do a matchless DC30. Copy all of the parameters across. Here, up in the gain for scene 2. So scene 1 would basically be the fair amount of amp gain. But you could even change amps altogether between scenes. You see there's like a fade between those two sounds though. Got a high cut on the cab block, which is really useful to have. Typically if I'm using higher gain tones, then I will go down as far as sort of 5,000. Different mic choices and really nice visuals for this.
If I was going to use this, I think this is how I would use it. I've got it here in scenes mode. So you've got 3 scenes, kind of like an HX Stomp with snapshots. There are other ways you can run it. So if you press here, not there, here, foot switches, you can do stomp mode, scene mode, or preset mode. So yeah, for me, I think stomp is what I would use. And yeah, there's also a looper built in, and also something which I don't really have time to go into properly, but this quick block thing, which could be a useful way of building things slightly quicker.
Overall, I wanted to give you some sort of like accurate impression about what it might be like to use this for the first time. Definitely, I would say jump straight in and use the editor, because that is more straightforward to use than the onboard editor itself, and relatively straightforward to use. I do still think this is where there is a bit of a gap between some of the, you know, brands like NUX and some of the big daddies in terms of modeling. There's still a gap to be overcome in terms of user interface and in terms of usability, but you know, they are catching up in important ways, I think. Also, it has to be said that I think this does sound really pretty good. The factory presets, like those fenders and stuff like that, I thought sounded really good. I'm going to go and make an intro now, but you know, that's kind of what the device is about. We've got input, send, return, output left and right, aux in, phones, MIDI in and MIDI out, expression control,
you can do a lot of powerful stuff with it once you figure out the interface.